I'm Trish Williams. I oversee the scripted content group at CBC, based in Toronto. And our group does the dramas, comedies, and feature films and radio comedies that you see both on the main network CBC and on GEM. And we do the development of these projects. We take pitches from people such as yourselves and do the development, and then our whole team is across the greenlight process, and then we oversee the series as they're going into production. So that's me, and I will introduce my friends here on the panel, or why don't I throw to you and you can introduce yourselves, Aren.
Okay, I'm Aren Prupas. I'm the president and CEO at MUSE. I've been with the company for the last 12 years. It's my pleasure to be here with you today and share what I can about our industry.
Hi everyone, my name is Onedia Crawford. I'm the VP of Scripted Development at the on the MUSE team. I work across series and movies.
And I'm Jesse Prupas. I'm the SVP of Scripted at MUSE. In case you're wondering about the last names, Aren and I are brothers, and MUSE is still a family-owned company. Our dad is in the audience over there here cheering us on, and it's up to me to cue the reel. So if you could all pay attention for a few seconds, we get to show you some of our stuff.
That's really impressive. Okay, well, that's present, but we're going to rewind back in time now. And I love this question because it kind of shows you a little bit about the person behind the company. Can you each take a little bit of time to tell us about your first job in the industry, what it was, and how it was that you knew this was going to be your career?
That's a good one. I'll start. My first job in the industry was as a trainee in the AD department of the movie The Whole Nine Yards, which was shot in Montreal in 1998. I was a glorified go-boy going to fetch coffees, and I have a fond memory of holding an umbrella over Bruce Willis's head in the blazing hot sun so his makeup wouldn't melt. And through that experience, I kind of learned, for me at least, that working on set was not really my jam, and I wanted to be more on the producing side, and eventually launched a legal career that led me into this side of the company. Onedia?
So I will just mention, I mean, credit to both Jesse and Aren because they did really, they were in the trenches when they started out, even though their dad is an incredible entertainment lawyer and producer, and they had a little bit of a leg up. I will say, just for everybody, who maybe didn't come from that world, I was not in the film industry. My parents were not in the film industry. I grew up in a really small town, and one of my actual first jobs in the industry was working at MUSE. I was in second year university. I applied for an internship there in distribution. They gave me an opportunity, and I'm now a VP at the company. So it was a pretty great first job because it turned into something.
But you did have an internship at TIFF for a little bit, or you volunteered at TIFF for many years. I think Oneida's resume, when it first arrived, impressed us with some of that love of film. And my first job in the industry was also as a production PA in the unit department. I was fortunate to get work on a show called Student Bodies, which was made by Telescene many, many years ago, if you remember YTV. And I was responsible for parking the cars and cleaning up after the actors and getting cigarettes for my line producer and other types of work like that. And I really loved the production side of the business. I've always loved being on set, and it's where I find myself in my happiest place when we are making things.
I love that. And this is a bit of a follow-up just about kind of the career path. And we talked about this a little bit when we got together before, but curious for each of you, is what you thought you wanted to do when you first thought about this industry as your career the thing that you wound up liking and being good at? Are those two different things? Aren, you go first.
I think that's, I guess, a hard question, right? Because sometimes you're good at things you don't like and vice versa. I think for me, on the legal business affairs side, that really was sort of up my alley. I thought in that way. Jesse can speak to that as we were growing up, sort of logical and ultimately, launched me into more of a producing capacity and at this point helping to manage multiple teams within our organization. So I like it. It's still work, If it was always fun, they would call it fun and not work, but it's work and it's fun to be part of something where you're creating, and that's what I've really enjoyed coming from working in private practice to working now in industry. Is starting with a kernel idea and then seeing something like that on screen is really meaningful, even if you only play a small part in that creation.
I would say I think for most people it's really hard to know what you want to do unless you've tried doing it. It's like you start in school, and it's like you have to choose what your, degree is going to be or what college you go to before you've even had a job or volunteered or worked in that space. So I think that's really hard to figure out. And I think that the great thing about, interning at MUSE, and I also did do an internship as a producer's assistant, with another Montreal-based indie producer. And I think I didn't really know that these jobs existed, that you could work in development, that you could be a producer when I was in film studies, because we just talked about directors and auteurs. And, so I think it's I guess my advice to people is really just try to go do the thing if you hear about it. I tried doing an internship at the McCord Museum, and it was in digitization, and I was bored out of my mind. Was that's not for me. I'm not going to go do that program. I'm going to keep, working in distribution and figure out what that's like. And then they gave me opportunities in development, production. I'm sure Aren would have been happy if I was interested in business affairs too, but I kind of sided with Jesse. So yeah, I think it was more about trying out the thing and figuring out what I was good at based on doing it.
I think for me, I like many of you early on in my life wanted to write and direct, and I went to college. I did a degree in political science, but in my last years of college, I found myself writing a short film and shooting a short film on my own and writing some animation stuff. And I quickly realized as I got into the industry and that I had actually some other stronger skill sets. One of them was as an editor, and I'd been a newspaper editor in college, and I'd worked in that kind of role as well. And I think that's a skill set that I've brought to my work as a development executive, is knowing when to say, you should cut this. And same thing with, I've always really liked, it sounds weird, but I really like spreadsheets. and I'm really into making things balance, and I can spend hours and hours on a budget and not get bored. And when I realized that that was something that I was good at and interested in, I found it was a skill set that I could really bring to the industry as a line producer and producer.
Lover of spreadsheets. Remember that. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about the very beginnings of the company. I know we have Michael here. Hi, Michael. Because you didn't start off making all these great big productions. Aren,
I
can
can
you
try
tell
this
us
one.
about
I mean,
the
it's
beginning?
I'll try to do it in like 100 words or less. But we started the company was founded by my father in 1998. We started mainly service producing for U.S. productions coming into Montreal specifically. Eventually, sort of turned those cash flows into our own development and started developing our own TV movies, thrillers type films. That eventually led us into some of our bigger projects over the years, the miniseries you saw highlighted, like the Kennedys, After Camelot, Tut, and now we make a lot of TV movies, TV series. For CBC, we did Coroner for 4 years that wrapped in 2022. And we have a non-scripted group now, so we kind of, a bit of the sort of genesis of the company was in service production, and we parlayed that into ownership, but we still do a lot of service production, and it's sort of a balanced, diversified business, which we think works well for us and, rides the peaks and valleys of this industry.
And if I could add, the other, pillar, I guess, of the company has been co-production and also partnerships with key Canadian creatives. And we wouldn't have gotten to where we were without those collaborations with top creative producing talent and directing talent and writing talent, especially in this country. And we've been fortunate to have had those partnerships, be they were often in the form of first look deals or what we call housekeeping deals, but also the opportunities for co-production have been a big part of our DNA right from the beginning, be it initially through the UK, where we had partial ownership at the early genesis of the company through a company called Pearson, which eventually became Fremantle, but also through working with other European territories, especially France. And I think I've always been, as an Anglophone in Montreal, because my French is pretty good, been an advantage to other Canadian producers in terms of forming partnerships in France. And there's always been strong support here, especially at Radio-Canada, for kids animation. And so some of the early co-productions that we got involved with were animated series for preschoolers with French partners in France.
Oh, that's great, because I really wanted to dig in a little bit about, both the kind of how people find you. How is it that you are the ones that are being approached to partner with companies that come from other countries? Do you have a bit more of a sense of I think people in this room are how does it happen?
Well, I think it just comes with time, right? The more you're in the game, the more you build relationships, and the more people think, okay, I want to produce something in Canada. Who would be a good partner? Oh, MUSE is at the top of the list ideally. Same thing with the U.S. studios who come into Canada who are looking for service producers. So, we pound the pavement. We're at MIPCOM, we're at BANF, we're everywhere. We're headed to Content London in a couple of weeks. We're at TIFF. So just trying to keep working the network, and the opportunities will come when you do good work, which I think we do.
Do you want to speak to some of the?
I would just say, yeah. I mean, the other thing I would add is your reputation precedes you, and people come to us through word of mouth. A lot of times a recommendation or based on things that they've seen that we've done. So, yeah.
And I take pride in our both our responsiveness to receiving materials, trying to read and review and respond quickly, even if it's a no, to try to get that no quickly to people so that they're not waiting forever, to be respectful, and also to value certain clients as real VIPs. When those projects come in, they need to go to the top of your list, and you need to be extremely responsive and act with alacrity, I think, when it comes to those opportunities. Last night I got an email from a group in LA. There's a potential CanCon project that we're talking to them about, and they want us to be on the phone or want me to be on the phone with them tonight at 8 p.m. And of course, I'm going to do that, and that's just what you have to do, I think, when you're chasing.
How much will you be drinking at the cocktail, Jesse?
Unless I forget to get there and be on the call.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about how to pitch MUSE and what that entails and who you take pitches from. Do people who pitch you need to have certain credits, or can someone say who's working on a crew of one of your series get to know you and pitch you that way?
Well, I think that goes to Jesse's question. I think we're open to any good idea, but obviously the ones that come in through representation or through people we've worked with in the past come to the top of the list, but I'll let you guys speak more specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, a project that I remember, sitting down and reading outside of my balcony in the middle of the summer during the pandemic was a script that came in from somebody who worked in the art department of a movie. It was a spec that he had written. It was a really sweet rom-com. We eventually made it for Hallmark. But the point of difference was that it came from a director that we really love who, happened to be working with this crew member on another project. So I will say, like, the better the chances of me being able to, like, focus my attention on something is if it has been vetted. Whether that's an agent, whether that's a manager, whether that's, somebody else who has a relationship with MUSE, or somebody who's, like, a little bit, has a little bit more experience than you. If they can vouch for you, they can attach to it. I can give it a little bit more attention because we do receive a ton of projects. 1 year, projects I logged, we had 365 projects that we got, and that is a lot if you do the math, because I do not work 365 days of the year. So I think, just having something that's, vetted is ideal. And then the other way to reach me and reach our team is at markets and conferences like these. I try to pride myself on being available for those speed date meetings, those one-on-one pitch meetings. And if I don't respond to you the first email, please just keep trying again. It can seem a little annoying, but do it, because I will notice the person that emails me like 5 times about something. Because we just get busy because agents and people are calling us all the time to pitch us things. So just find a way to kind of, make your project stand out a little bit more, I would say.
And I can. I feel like it's almost time for me to give my 5 Ps of sales. I have a thing that I talk to our team a lot about, which is that process of selling and selling your content. And I describe it as the 5 Ps of sales, and those are punctual and polite and positive. And then the other 2 that are really important are persisting and persevering. And I'll sometimes add patient, which is the hardest one, so that's my sixth one. I always forget that P, but you do need to be patient when it comes to sales as well. In terms of to speak to what Onedia was saying, in terms of our attendance at markets and our availability through the links in our company's website, we do take in pitches, but it's definitely preferable that you are represented and have an agent who knows us, or another type of person who knows us to advocate for your project. We're on the receiving end of hundreds of pitches and projects a year, and we have to filter through them. In terms of one thing that Trish, you and I spoke about in terms of how do you first make that step to get representation, and I don't know if that's important for me to speak about, but I feel that you need to have written material. Fundamentally, if you want to be a writer, if you want to be a director, you need to have directed material. And it's important, if you're looking for a representation, to show a variety of what you can write. I recommend that if you want to get into series writing, that you should have a half-hour sample and a 1-hour sample. If you want to write features, you should have a long-form script or 2, and I would recommend them being in different genres, like a drama and a comedy. I think that really gives people a sense of the variety of things that you can have, be working on, and a real sense of your voice. And very often we read writers just for their voice. We want to see it's really important for us to read their scripts. And that's where you get a sense, much stronger than a pitch document, frankly, is how good is this person as a writer. And that's going to be on the script page.
Very true. Well, let's talk a little bit about development. Is there something that you're looking for right now in development? Is there something that is like, yeah, your chances will be much higher of getting a yes from you if you come with this kind of project.
More projects set in Montreal is what I'm sort of sensing from the audience today. But yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of genre, like, we mostly focus on, adult drama, I would say, and then you can break that down by some of the more kind of commercial genres. So think thrillers, mysteries, romance and romantic comedies. We are interested in genre, light supernatural, grounded genre. Those are a few that we gravitate towards. And procedurals, that's another big one.
I would re-emphasize romance. It's part of our company's DNA. We see a lot of successful romantic content out there, be it in series or in movies. We think it's easier to produce a romantic movie than a big sci-fi epic. It's amazing the amount of sci-fi pitches I receive and sci-fi scripts I have to read and go, well, I'm reading this for voice. It's not easy to make the next, Star Wars, but a beautiful romantic comedy or romantic drama. We know there's a market for that stuff, and that's what we're
for sure. Like serialized drama on the romantic side, it's really on brand for us. We make a lot of TV movies in that space. We're one of the producers of Sullivan's Crossing, which is in its 4th season now. Also from the maker of Virgin River, which is highly successful. And we know that type of content travels internationally. On the procedural front, the medical stuff and the police stuff travel. The legal stuff's a little harder. And you always, I think, need to think if you're trying to go big with like a real, a project in the $2 to $3 million an episodic range, you got to think, what is the international market going to pay for? Because these projects unfortunately cannot be financed out of Canada exclusively, and it needs to be able to travel, and some genres travel better than others.
Yeah, good advice. So if someone does get something into development with you, or you do want their concept, can you talk a bit about that? Like, does Muse have to then own the concept and you go from there, or what's that like?
Generally, yeah, the deals are usually struck as option to purchase agreements with respect to a concept. If it's coming in from a bona fide kind of producer, then the producer will also be attached in an executive producing capacity. Usually, we would be the studio, but we would be open to co-producing with the right partner, provided they, are willing to share in the risks and the rewards with us. I think, yeah, and there's a different variety of how we take in IP, but for the most part, we'd like to know that the rights are secured before we, invest significantly financially in the next steps of development. Anything you want to add on that? No, that's good.
Okay, well, I'll ask one more question, and then I'll open it up to people in the room, and we'll maybe have about 5 minutes then. Your company is such a great example of having had a lot of success for decades now, which is so cool. For those in the room just starting out their journey, would you say, can you reflect on something that you think is the most important long-term habit or mindset? You talked a little bit about the P's. For an emerging producer who wants to be in business, say 20 years from now. Aren, we'll start with you.
I think the persistence thing is a really big thing for me, because it's a business where you're going to get rejected a lot. So you need to be able to have a thick skin and be able to get up the next day and be like, that's okay, I'm going for the next, right? To me, that really stands out as a success point for us, is that we never gave up. And my father was always really like that, just working hard, always seeking the next opportunity. And, we try to emulate him the best we can. But, Jesse, what else would you add?
Yeah, I think that is certainly a major factor in how to, and I think other speakers spoke to it as well earlier. The idea of building relationships and building your network, and the strong. Canadians are really good at this. We're polite people. We're respectful, and sometimes it can seem like we're getting ignored. So that's why going back to the persistence, and the other word I mentioned is perseverance, because persistence is one thing, and Nida says, email me 5 times, I'll eventually respond. But when you get that no after the 5th time, it's going to be really hard on your ego. So the hardest one is persevering. There's going to be a lot of, and I've had lots and ups and downs in my career. Sometimes you're at the top of the world and you're making a show that you you dreamed about years to make, and you're there, and it's all happening. And other times, you're getting passed on, or your show isn't getting financed, and you've spent months developing it or years developing it, and that can be really hard on the ego. So the only thing I can say to that is hang in there.
Yeah, to bookend that, like for a perfect example with respect to Corner, actually, is that project was originally at Bell Media. So we climbed the mountain. We had 3 scripts. Project gets passed on, put in turnaround, and ultimately gets produced with the CBC. So you just never know if you have the right project. Someone's going to hopefully make it with you.
And I guess the last thing I'll say is that I feel like with this job and like this industry, there's no really manual that's like, this is how you do it. I feel like other jobs sometimes seem a little bit more straightforward and there's guidelines and it's a little more repetitive. These projects, you're working with different people every time. The deals are always structured differently. The partners that you're working with can always be different. There's no like one right way to do something. And I think that can be frustrating because I feel like you don't really know how to do something until you've done it. So again, it goes back to what I was saying, like you really just have to try doing it. And then afterwards you'll be like, oh great, now I know how to do that thing. Because sometimes I'm frustrated where I'm like, I haven't experienced this thing before. I don't know how to figure out working with these people or with this project. So you kind of just have to do it. So it's maybe not a habit, it's more of like a mindset. And I think that I wouldn't be doing this job if I didn't love it. Like it's funny because my family sometimes joke about like, oh, like, you know, when are we going to be on your yacht? Because like I make these movies and they're like, oh, that's going to be great. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not in it for the money. Because if I was, I'd be like in software engineering or I'd be doing, you know, banking. Like it's just not for that. So I feel like everybody in the room probably gets that. Like you're in it because you love it and you want to keep learning from it. So it's a mindset. You just keep doing it. You learn from all your mistakes. You learn every time you step foot on a production or you get like a new, you know, deal you have to work out or like meet a new person that you have to work with and navigate how they like to work and their personality. So for me, it feels like a mindset, and that's how I cope.
If I could add just quickly about the love, you've got to love content. Like it's amazing to us. We interview, you know, quite a few people, Onedia and I, for positions, assistant positions to us, and some of the first things we're going to be asked them is, so what show are you watching? What was the last movie you saw in the cinema? And you know, if you can't answer that question to yourself, and you're really, oh, I'm just watching YouTube right now, that maybe you should be working on YouTube and not necessarily scripted TV. And I think it's really important to love what's being made and to, you know, be aware of what's in the cinema right now, currently, and we really look at people who have that same kind of passion as we do.
I like to say, like, it's hard to succeed in life unless you're having fun doing it, and you're not going to have a lot of fun unless you love it. So.
Long live long-term content, long-form content, I should say. 2 questions we have time for. Yes, I'm going to go for you first.
Hi, my name is Susan, and I just wanted to say kudos to your dad. I have 2 sons, and it's just really cool to collaborate on such a passionate stream of work and collaboration. I know that. This is my son. He's actually directing a movie that I wrote. And anyway, we're working together. It's been a dream for quite a while. So kudos and lots of fun there. So what I'd like to know is, do you leave yourself open to that cutting edge new style or genre that maybe is not your usual and take a chance on it sometimes so that you say, this will be a really cool challenge, rather than, okay, we've done this, might be a different deal, might have to work on different negotiations, but what about that exciting new thing that, I think this is going to work? And is that a great challenge for you?
Maybe I can answer once, and then maybe over to you, Onedia. I'm sure you have examples too. So the answer is we are very market focused on where we're developing for, and when projects come in and we look at them, we're like, where will there be buyers for this project? I think is the number one thing that we're asking for a project. So that might not be the answer you're looking for, but there needs to be a place. That being the case, there are markets that our company isn't a specialist in, that we have thought, oh, you know what, we would like to be in, say, the true crime business. And we will make a concerted effort to get into the true crime business, be it on the scripted side or the unscripted side. And we've had quite a bit of success in the last couple of years in that space, even if it wasn't something that we were known for. This year, I don't particularly love horror as a genre, but I know that people like my colleague Onedia do enormously, and that there are a lot of people that go to the cinema and watch this genre. So we have optioned a couple horror scripts this year. We'll see how we go in terms of selling them. It's not an easy sell. It's certainly not an easy sell in Canada, but there are buyers in the United States that we think we know program this genre, and so we've been a little experimental there.
I mean, I feel like we have to focus on the bulk of our slate really is commercially, oriented projects that we know that there are buyers for, and there's genres that we've excelled in previously, but those successes enable us to take on the odd one-off project that's a little bit outside of the box, or that, feels a little different. Like we do have something that was in development at Paramount, and after Paramount Canada kind of closed, we took it and we were like, let's keep trying. And Sodak, gave us some development support for that project. We're trying to make it as a feature, and we all really believe in it, even though it's such an uphill battle. So I think it depends on the project. If it's something that really resonates with us, we're really passionate about. I think things that subvert what we've seen out there, and you see a way to say something new or do something fresh with something that's maybe a little more familiar for people, like a project we made called Hot Frosty for Netflix, that nobody had ever really done that type of rom-com Christmas movie before. So just doing something that's a little more fresh, that maybe injects something magical or supernatural or something fun that we haven't seen before, we're definitely open to that.
Okay, I think we have one last question. Lady with the box.
Hello, yes, it is I, Lady with the Box. I saw that you do animated YA on your website, but all your live action content seems to be more for adults, so I was wondering if you do live action YA as well.
Yeah, we're definitely open to that. We've been pitching an awesome YA project the last couple of months. I will say we've been able to pitch a lot of the buyers. It's still a bit of a struggle, because I think the market's definitely challenging right now. But I think that when you look at some of the biggest hits on the streamers these days, they are YA shows. I would watch those shows if you're pitching in that space, because sometimes I talk to people and they haven't seen My Life with the Malter Boys, or they didn't really watch Wednesday, or I'm kind of you gotta watch that genre if you're going to be pitching in it, but we're open to that. I just think that, again, we might take on one or two projects in that space on our slate. So we're just really selective, I would say, about
it
that.
speaks to the market that Jesse was saying. It's just a smaller market, and that's unfortunately why it's on our website, because we haven't been as successful as we'd like in developing and producing in that area. Yeah.
And that's a really hard demographic to get to, right? Because most of them are watching YouTube. So it's the commercial, the main broadcasters aren't necessarily focusing on that either. So it's something to think about. Where are you watching those shows? So then those are probably the buyers for it. And how many are there? Maybe there's 4, And
it's speaking a little bit to what I was saying earlier about genre diversification for us. We see that there's a market for horror, so let's be experimental and try to go after it. It's the same for YA. We certainly see there's a market for it on the streamer side. There's some really successful romantic YA content and genre YA content out there that everybody's watching. So we should play in that. And we also think that there are opportunities in long form movie making for YA as well. That there are buyers specifically asking for what is that YA romance that you might have, what is that YA thriller that you might have. That's a bit different for us. So and I would say in those cases we're looking for, probably completed spec scripts that we can bring into those buyers.
Or IP.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to all of you, Aren, Jesse,
you,
and
Trish.
Onedia. Appreciate it very much.